What's the address you want before you start?
72 North Pearl Street. All right. All right, so. Okay, good. All right. Welcome everybody to our coffee conversation. My name is Craig. I'm one of your recovery coaches here at Capital Recovery Center. And today we have two gentlemen here. And if you don't mind saying your name,
Williston
and
Manuel Anderson.
Manuel Anderson. And somehow you are on that camera. Perfect. Do me a favor. Yeah, can you sit over there, please? Thank you, man. Appreciate it. All right. So without further ado, we're gonna get right into this lesson. And today we're going to be talking about 13 tips for staying sober, coffee and conversation. And so we're not going to be before you long, but we are going to discuss the importance of 13 tips for staying sober. This article is brought to you by verywellmind.com. If you want this article, you can go online, pull it up for yourself, and retrieve it. So I'm going to read some, and then I'm going to ask one of these gentlemen if they feel like reading. All right?
You open teams?
And so the article says, if you're in recovery from a substance use disorder, you already know how much work it took to achieve sobriety, and you'll want to do everything possible to avoid having a relapse. It may seem that relapse is the last thing that could happen to you, but the truth is that they are very common for people new to recovery. This article discusses what sobriety means and describes strategies that can support your long-term recovery. It also covers tips on how to deal with the challenges you face on your journey with sobriety. All right, and so let's talk about Emmanuel and Williston. What is sobriety? The article says sobriety means not being under the influence of a substance. However, the word is often used in different ways in different contexts. Many 12-step programs suggest that sobriety means total abstinence, never using the substance ever again. Other definitions, however, often focus on the process of recovery and developing coping mechanisms and habits that support health and wellness over the long term. Total abstinence may be the goal, but the reality is that setbacks are common. All right? And so I am someone that's in recovery, and I know firsthand what it is to have a setback and my recovery journey. And so at one point, I didn't have the, I want to say, the coping skills or the bravery to say no when drugs were offered to me at that given time, because truthfully, like I just said, I didn't have the coping skill or the bravery. But now that I've learned some coping tools, some coping skills, I'm able to easily say today that ain't something that I'm doing. Right? It is estimated that up to 80% of those who find long-term sobriety, had at least one relapse along the way. Some people experience many setbacks before they found lasting recovery. Your intention may be good, but it takes more than willpower to avoid having a relapse. Y'all agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Right. And so who feel like just reading a little bit, how do you become sober? Let's talk about that.
There are a variety of tools available that may help you pick a quick date or a day when you choose to discontinue use of alcohol or drugs. It is also helpful to change your environment. For instance, avoid going to bars. These are also resources such as 12-step groups and recovery groups. However, research suggests that while 12-step groups are effective, people often don't continue their involvement at beneficial levels over the long term. Only study found that mutual support groups can be as efficient as 12-step programs and may help improve the odds of success for people who are committed to maintaining a lifetime of total abstinence. Recap.
So we're gonna pause just a little bit. So as Emmanuel just read, there's a difference from support groups and there's a difference from 12-step. And so this is not a 12-step, this is a support group where we talk about ways and ideas and some of the tools that we can use to maintain our sobriety. And so whatever works for you is fine with me. If you're doing a 12-step, if you're doing Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholic Anonymous, and you're working the big book, that's fine. But here we are a support group. Basically, we're sharing ideas to help one another to maintain our sobriety. You want to read that, Paul? You start.
Recap. Some definitions of sobriety call for complete lifelong abstinence, while others focus on developing coping mechanisms that can reduce harm with the understanding that setbacks are common.
All right, cool. All right, and so that's a recap. And so we don't want to rush through it. I mean, because we're here just for a short period. So we're going to get through as much as we can with the time that we are allotted. And so as he read, we just went over some recaps of some definitions of sobriety, and right? And so now we're going to talk about how to stay sober. Will, you feel like reading a little bit?
Some said the best advice for newcomers to recovery on how to stay sober is simple. Don't drink or use or go to meetings. If the former works for you, then by all means do it. But most people stay sober isn't as straightforward. The more strategies you learn to identify triggers, cope with stress, and manage your sober life, it's easier it is to prevent relapse.
All right. And so that is so true, how to stay sober, because a lot of times it's easier said than done. You know, we can talk to somebody that has a blue, red, whatever color they turn in the face. But if we don't help them to identify some of the triggers and give them some coping skills to how to handle and manage stress, then we are just only talking. So what we're doing here, we're just learning what are some of the triggers, what are some of the cravings, what are some of the urges that we may encounter during our sobriety. And so I'll read the next one. And it says, identify your personal triggers. All right, a big part of preventing relapse is understanding your external triggers, or the people, places, things, and situations that elicit thoughts of or craving associated with substance use, as well as your internal triggers like feelings, thoughts, or emotion associated with substance use. So the article is letting us know there are outside, external triggers, and also there are internal triggers. So we have to really identify what are they. You know, sometimes we can go around some people, they can be our trigger. We may go some places, or we may be having a bad day. And instead of using or picking up, we can replace negative emotions or thought patterns with some positive ones. Once you identify your biggest risks, you can create a plan to prepare for or avoid them. Some common triggers may include, number one, stress. That's a big one for a lot of people. You know, sometimes we get stressed out, emotional stress, environmental cues, right? Things that we may come across during our day-to-day interaction. People who are still using drugs or drinking, right? Old friends, things of that nature. Relationship troubles. You know, we may have a significant other and or a family member. We may get into a heated discussion, and we talked about it before, how we deal with confrontation. You know, do we deal with it from a positive perspective, or we can do it with it from a negative? But we rather use the positive approach. Job or financial problem, and so that is a big one for a lot of people, especially coming out of recovery, because a lot of times when we have jobs and we used to doing things, our old behaviors, and we're not used to the new norms. And so a lot of times, if we're not comfortable taking advice for those in authority, such as our supervisor, that may become a stressful situation. And so now we are in recovery. Now we can think clearer and we can rationalize of how we can better communicate with people on a day-to-day level. So next one, we're going to talk about 5 triggers of relapse and how to avoid them. All right. So Emmanuel, you let me know. You still feel like reading?
Recognize relapse warning signs. A relapse can sneak up on you, usually because you don't recognize the warning signs. A relapse begins long before you actually pick up or drink or a drug and involves 3 phases: emotional relapse, mental relapse, and physical relapse. Warning signs of relapse include returning to an addictive thinking pattern, engaging in compulsive, self-defeating behaviors, seeking out situations involving people who use alcohol and drugs, thinking less rationally, and behaving less responsibly. Finding yourself in a situation in which drugs or alcohol use seems like a logic escape from pain. Warning signs of alcohol or drugs
Cool.
relapse.
Nice. For all those who may be out here listening and watching us, these 2 young men, they for safety reasons, I want to say safety reasons, but due to them as part of the support group, we asked them, we can't show them as of now because there are laws that prevent us to, and so we want to protect their safety at all costs. And so this young man, he just read warning signs of relapse, and which include, and they are very willing and very able to participate and express themselves very eloquently. And I appreciate both of y'all for reading and taking time to be a part of this, because a lot of times we interact with people in group, and when you ask somebody to share or read, for whatever reason, they may be shy, they may be uncomfortable, but you guys, I take my hat off to you because y'all step up to the plate. That's all I can say. All right. And so that was some good reading. We're talking about returning to addictive thinking. And so these are some warning signs: engaging in compulsive, self-defeating behavior. That's big right there. All right. Mm-hmm. Seeking out situations involving people who use drugs, alcohol or drugs. And so the next one we want to talk about, and that is prepare for pause. All right. So I'll read that. It says, post-acute withdrawal syndrome, which stands for pause, involves experiencing withdrawal symptoms that persist past the detox period. Such symptoms are often related to mood and may include irritability, anxiety, depression, sleep problems, and fatigue. These things is called post-acute withdrawal symptoms. All of us, we are human and we experience these emotions or these mood swings or psychological things. Depending on the type of dependency, pause can last from 6 months to 2 years after you stop using drug or alcohol. So a lot of times we think, just because we left out of rehab, we got it all beat. We ain't got to worry about ever going through any emotional setbacks or any irrational irritabilities within our own self. So a lot of times people think that because they haven't picked up drug or alcohol, that there's not other issues that we need to address. But this article says that there are post-acute withdrawal syndrome even after coming out of rehab. So it says it takes 6 months to 2 years after you stop using drugs or alcohol, right? And it says the symptoms involved in pause can be a barrier to recovery if you're not careful. In addition to being able to recognize them, it's important to know when to seek help. If pause is severe or if you're experiencing prolonged symptoms, a medical professional can help you work through them and remain in recovery without relapse. And so I am not a counselor, I'm not a therapist, I am not a sponsor, I am a recovery coach. And so if you are experiencing any of these post-acute withdrawal syndromes, please feel free to contact us here at Capital Recovery Center, 856-391-7449, and someone will be generous to help you. And so let's talk about the next one, and that is avoid old routines and habits. Feel like, well,
It stands to reason that if you quit your drugs of choice, if you quit your drug of choice, but continue with the same routine, hanging around the same people, places, and not making any changes in your circumstances, it will be much easier to slip back into your old behaviors and habits. Some other immediately changes you will need to make will be obvious, like not hanging around people that you used to obtain drugs from. After all, you can't hang around your drug dealer and old drinking buddies and expect to remain sober for very long. You may also need to change your routine to work or home in order to avoid any triggers or people, places, and things that make you want to use or drink again.
yeah, and that's, I mean, for a lot of people and for a lot of us, people, places, and things, they are some strong triggers that can cause us to respond inappropriately. And so a lot of times, as the article may mention, we must know those external triggers. We must recognize the cues, and that is those things that can cause us to trip us up if we're not careful. And so a lot of times we have to be able to identify cues, and cues is basically identify emotions, right? And so if I'm feeling a certain type of way, I must be able to recognize it and see it for what it is and not for what it appears to be. So if I'm having a stressful day and I'm feeling frustrated, I must have this self-talk with myself or with somebody else like Williston or Emmanuel. I can talk to them and say, hey man, I'm having a bad day. You know, I went in my supervisor's office and, you know, we didn't see eye to eye, you know. And so help me, you know, I'm gonna tell you the scenario, help me to figure it out together, because a lot of times if I try to figure it out on my own, I may misrepresent it or overstate what I'm actually, or perceive what I'm actually seeing. And so a lot of times someone in a support group, that's why it's called a support group. We are here to do what? Support, help one another. Just like it says, iron sharpen iron, men sharpen men. So we are here as men, we helping one another to grow and elevate and become better than we were yesterday. So let's talk about build healthy relationships. Yeah, please.
Now that you are sober, you may have discovered that some of your past relationships were not only unhealthy, but downright toxic. It is not just your drinking buddies and drug dealers who you can get you into trouble. Sometimes those who are closest to you can contribute to a relapse. For example, You may have developed a codependent relationship, or a family member, friends, or employer may have been enabling you without even knowing it. Research shows that if you maintain these types of toxic relationships, your chance of relapse are greater. To avoid relapse, you and remain sober, it is important to develop healthy relationships.
All right. And so it talks about not only old buddies, you know, a lot of times we look at, you know, let me stay away from Raheem, let me stay away from Lee, or let me stay away from Roger, whatever, you know, our buddies, our past buddies may, you know, names may be. The article says there are many other factors that we must consider, right? And it says we may have a codependent relationship with others, whether it's a family member, whether it's a friend, or an employer who are causing us to have a toxic relationship. So we want to build healthy relationship and avoid the toxic ones. Get support. This one is so important to everyone that's well, I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah.
All right. And so this one, we're going to talk about get support. And this, and I believe this is one we're going to wrap up, because I think we should wrap up on this one, because this is very, very essential to anyone that may be listening or watching us. It's so important to get support. The article says, if you find it difficult to make new sober friends, try joining a support group. Spending more time with supportive loved ones and planning activities for the entire family can also help you develop a healthier lifestyle and avoid situations in which you would normally drink or use drugs. It is also important to seek help from a therapist. A mental health professional can help you cope with some of the challenges you'll face on your path to sobriety. A therapist can help you learn new coping skills, develop new thinking patterns, and address any co-occurring mental health conditions that may make recovery more difficult. You may also experience what is commonly called sobriety fatigue. Wow. Sobriety fatigue, which refers to the overall exhaustion that may occur as a result of the emotional and physical stress of staying sober. So it's extra helpful to have a support network available to you when you need it. Right? And so it says, if you or loved ones are struggling with substance use or addiction, contact the Substance Abuse Mental Health Service Administrators, known as SAMHSA. National hotline, I'm going to give it to you right now. It's 1-800 number 662-4357 for information, or you can contact us here at Capital Recovery Center at 72 North Pearl Street, here located in Bristol, New Jersey. Telephone number 856-391-7449. And so, as always, please join us. Please subscribe, like, share, give us some feedback. Let us know what we're doing and what we can do better. Until the next time, y'all take care of yourself. All right.